Welcome, everybody. Hope you're doing well. You know, things were so crazy and hectic last week with the DNC and in general over the weekend that we missed some really interesting examples of how to properly handle and sort of diffuse some of the attempts to divide the Democratic Party. And I'm not even necessarily arguing that every single one of these examples I'm going to play for you is an overt attempt to divide the Democratic Party in order to help Donald Trump. But these are really good examples of how not to allow that to happen, whether or not it's the intention of an interviewer. We're going to look at Gavin Newsom in a moment, but I want to start with Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders on Sunday was on ABC's This Week with Jonathan Karl. And Jonathan Karl asks a question where, listen, we don't have to be critical of Jonathan Karl. It's a fine question, which is there are disagreements within the Democratic Party when it comes to Kamala Harris's positions and policies on something like healthcare and Medicare for all, as an example. And he goes to Bernie as one of the big voices for Medicare for all. And he sort of sets up what appears to be a sizable division within the Democratic Party. What Bernie does is brilliant, which is he turns it around and he says, compare the views of Kamala Harris to those of Donald Trump, which is the relevant practical question facing voters in, what is it now, 9 weeks, 8 weeks, I guess 9 weeks, something like that. And there's a lot to say about this. So let's see how Bernie handles it, and then we're going to talk about it more.
Also, in her first campaign, she supported Medicare for all, like you. She supported a ban on fracking and offshore oil drilling. These are clearly new positions now that she's taking.
Jonathan,
why is that?
Let me just say this.
Yeah.
If you go out and you do a poll, as I have done, and you ask the American people whether or not health care is a human right, and whether we should do what every other major country on earth does and guarantee health care to all of our people, the answer is yes. Should we be spending twice as much per capita on health care, despite 85 million people being uninsured or underinsured? Most of the American people understand the system is broken.
Yeah.
So Kamala Harris and I have a disagreement. I do believe in Medicare for all. I think the current system is dysfunctional and broken. She has a different point of view. But right now, Kamala Harris is running against Donald Trump. And Donald Trump's position on all of these issues are virtually extremely right-wing, pro-insurance company. He wants to end the Affordable Care Act, throw millions of people off of the health care that they have. So I think when you look at her positions versus Trump, the issue is clearly day and night. Her positions are far, far more superior.
Bernie does two critical things here. And this is not minor stuff. This is of the most important sort of aspects of shaping the debate around not only this election, but around what has become apparent division within the Democratic Party, even though we might just call it more benignly diversity of opinion, right? It's every difference of opinion doesn't have to be a divisive crack in the Democratic Party the way some would like to have you believe it is. Bernie does two things. The first thing Bernie does is he says, let's step back for a second from Jonathan Karl saying Kamala had this position in 2020, but now she believes this. Kamala had this position. Let's step back from that for a second. The framing should be, when we look at the American people, who at the end of the day are the most important ones, because it's the American people who are saying through our elected officials, what do we want? The American people overwhelmingly believe, whatever you call it, it doesn't have to be Medicare for all. And in fact, you can make the case that the American people might prefer a different way of getting everybody health care that's affordable. But the American people in general believe that the government should provide some basic level of health care to everybody, regardless of ability to pay. I've outlined a dozen different ways to do it. You look at what Germany does versus France, Canada, the United Kingdom, Singapore. There are different ways that we could achieve that. But the American people are on the same page, whether it's the Bernie version or the Kamala Harris version or someone else. That's the starting point, number one. And then number two, the question Jonathan Karl asks 72, 75 days before the election is not the most important question, because we all disagree with what Trump would offer. OK, yes, we may have differences with regard to the best implementation. There's people in my audience who really like the French system, and there's people in my audience who really like the Singaporean system. But we are all essentially in agreement that the system Trump likes and what Trump looked at trying to pass in 2017 would be a disaster. So an excellent job by Bernie Sanders diffusing the attempt at divisiveness. Different ways to solve the problem. None of us agree with the way Trump would do it. Trump would make the problem worse. That's what's at stake when you're thinking, how is it a relevant question in November? Bernie and Kamala differ on health care. Therefore, maybe I should vote Trump. It's ridiculous. And I don't know whether Jonathan Karl is doing this just because he's trying to generate interest on his show or because he's actually trying to sow division and help Donald Trump. I don't have any evidence he's trying to help Trump, but it's important to do what Bernie did and not get sucked into it in that way. And there are other issues. Certainly, Israel-Gaza would be one of them, where the focus is how does Kamala's view differ from AOC's? And how does that differ from whoever else? Right. We're 75 days from either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump becoming president. And Trump has said, let him turn it into a parking lot, finish the job, whatever. So it's worse for the Palestinian people for Trump to win. Once we say, okay, the Trump option's off the table, now we get involved and we say, how do we want Kamala Harris to deal with this issue, which at a starting point is going to be in a much better way than what Donald Trump would have done. Excellent, excellent job by Bernie Sanders in not allowing the primary story to be apparent division within the Democratic Party. If you are a student or you run a business, you know how expensive software subscriptions can get. I can tell you as a business owner myself, it adds up, especially with so many software companies forcing bundles and subscriptions on you. And the solution is our sponsor, Software Keep. With Software Keep, you only buy the software you need, you only pay once, you always get a huge discount, and you'll get better customer support. Not only will you save money on software for Windows and Mac, but the experience with Software Keep is better. Before you buy, Software Keep will help you figure out what you actually need so you don't overpay. After you buy, if you have any issues, questions, or anything, Software Keep provides 24/7 lifetime expert software support, including holidays and weekends, and all purchases are protected by the 180-day money-back guarantee and a lifetime product warranty. Very different than when you buy direct from Microsoft. Software Keep is trusted by over 400,000 customers with a 4.7-star rating on Trustpilot. On top of the major discounts that Software Keep already provides, you, as an audience member of mine, get an additional 20% off for a limited time when you go to davidpakman.com/softwarekeep and then use the code PAKMAN. The link is in the description.